I have lived a life of great freedom and great adventure. And one of my adventures is the production of lysergic acid diethylamide, an osprey call. So I've been lucky enough to have made lysergic acid diethylamide, and I think if one molecule could show a whole new world to the world at large, to the mindset of the common man, new possibilities exist beyond ordinary thinking. And to find those moments of transcendence beyond ordinary waking state consciousness, sometimes a molecular tool such as LSD might jolt one out of one's common ruts and into spaces of openness, spaces of possibility, spaces of liberty. And that's why I think cognitive liberty is an important concept, the right to think for oneself, the right to modify or attenuate, or however you might want to say, your own consciousness with the use of exogenous. That means from outside of my body, putting into my body, putting into my interior space that I possess as my own sovereign right. The drugs of my choice, the molecules of my choice, the substances of my choice. I think the right to think for oneself is the quintessence of freedom. On whatever drug I see fit, however I seem to want to alter my mind, provided actually that I don't commit crimes against the person, that I don't trespass on other people's privacy, their interior world, their physical manifestation, that I do not trespass against them. We already have laws for that. We don't need drug laws telling us what we can or cannot experience as mind states, what neurotransmitters we can attenuate in our pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what it's all about. So you do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around. Cognitive liberty is what it's all about. Cognitive liberty is at the base of belief system. It's like, really, if you don't have free thought, then you don't have free choice of belief system. And therefore, you don't have free religion. And if free religion is important, at base, it's cognitive liberty. It's the right to think for oneself. And that might include altering one's mental functioning as one sees fit.
But isn't it true that drugs could increase the likelihood that someone would hurt another person? Like if you're driving drunk, there's more of a possibility that someone would.
Yeah, and so reasonable regulations as to such behaviors doesn't seem any problem at all. I think reasonable regulation with regards to operating heavy machinery under strong influence of psychoactives is probably very unwise, and therefore ought to be regulated to some reasonable extent. And I think they should do the same thing with drugs. I don't know how they're going to work that out over a long period of time to figure out where to draw a line in how altered one is before one is impaired by some standard of law. Because they want to binary on what impaired means. What does impair actually mean? And how do you know where is that boundary for each individual? How subjective is it? And that'll be a hard line to draw, but it's a reasonable line to draw.
And why do you think cognitive liberty is very important?
If we don't explore the cartography of our mind, if we don't explore the landscape, the invisible landscape that lies within in millions and millions of years of evolution, if we don't learn that general trend, we're going to make life harder on ourselves. We're going to die out. We're going to kill ourselves off. We're going to poison ourselves. We're going to pollute ourselves. We're going to torture ourselves with our corruption and our greed. and shit like that. And we're doing a good amount of that right now. So I think it would be wise for us to tune in to our evolutionary imperatives, like our real serious biopsychology, or the apparatus in which we process the universe through our brains, to understand that in the most intimate ways. I think altering our consciousness is essential to get that and grasp that. The range of the human mind is gigantic. So vast.
And how do drugs do that?
I don't know. I really don't. Some sort of possible overload or spike or heavy push of the normal biochemical pathways alters the way one perceives the world.
But isn't it kind of an illusion if it's...
Isn't it kind of what?
An illusion if it's something...
Yeah, but that's essential to understanding it at all. It's all an illusion. It's all processed by an apparatus that's only making models. It doesn't have a direct experience that isn't attenuated by the perception of the mind that moves it into the attentional field of consciousness.
And so how are you involved in this subject?
I got arrested in England for the production of LSD, DMT, and 2CB, and a bunch of others, and I knew that I was going to stand up and wage a human rights defense argument based on freedom of thought and cognitive liberty. I knew I was screwed. I was like a hand in the cookie jar kind of moment. So I was like, this is it. Let's just play. Let's play this out as a concept. Let's dance with this. This, for me right now, is the only dance there was, and there is. And so I got the opportunity of like really structuring and thinking about a defense argument in line with the fundamental principles of liberty as in particular the courts have discerned them throughout time. The prohibition against torture, psychological in particular, is intimately related to freedom of thought and cognitive liberty.
What charges were you up against?
Production of LSD, DMT, 2CB.
I mean, what were the potential, what do you call it, jail time or?
I did 20 years. I got a 20-year sentence, and I did 9.27 years of it.
In England?
In English prisons. 9 different ones.
What was that like?
Long. I had to learn patience. I had to learn powerlessness. I had to really grasp that. I had to really grasp that powerlessness. Understand I cannot leave these walls, but to keep my mind roaming, to allow it to be free. And I had some real high times and real times that I was so peaceful and uplifted. And just relaxed. Just in meditation. Long and airy meditation. To quote a friend.
How do you feel like it changed you?
I think it focused this phenomenal cosmic power I think I am. Kind of slowed me down.
And what was your last day?
May 29th, 2013? Yeah. I was escorted to the airplane where I met my wife of almost 3 years at that time. We got married in prison, Charlotte.
How did you meet her?
I wrote her a letter. I wrote her a letter with respect to my legal defense. I wanted her opinion in regards to a number of legal points of law. Since she was a law lecturer, turns out she was a criminology law lecturer, but she was really good in her responses. She didn't think that the judges would buy my cognitive liberty argument. She thought I was correct in my assessment, that I was right in the argument, and that it's a principled stand. And she'd go on to write in several journal articles and presentations. And so she wrote back basically, you're screwed, the judges won't buy it. But, without chemists, there'd be no better living through chemistry. And we'd eventually get married in prison.
So how do you feel like cognitive liberty can be moved forward, achieved?
Well, one, I'd encourage people to shamelessly experiment with their own mind if that's what they so choose to do. But to remember that, use a modicum of harm reduction. Be wise about what you're using. Know your substance, know your source, know your mind, know your dose, know your body. Study, understand yourself. In many, many, many ways.
It seems like when drugs are illegal, there's less of a likelihood that people will do that or will understand what they're taking, because it could be doctored in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Prohibition doesn't help anything to do with safety. It really creates a really damaging and dangerous environment because of the peoples who choose to use adulterants in drugs they sell or mislabel or, fuck with people basically.
Isn't there a country like, I think it's Portugal, who legalized everything?
Yeah, they've got a really interesting harm reduction policy. They're like, you get in trouble, we're going to start talking to you and see what's going on and see if we can help what's going on. But we're not going to use an incarceration model to do it. And I think it was really, really wise because it put it into a much more social relation now, a much more acceptable social relationship. And I think they've had great success with that model where that the interaction creates possibility for harm minimization, harm reduction, and benefit promotion. Not just worrying about the harms, but understanding that there are benefits. And that they can be balanced, the risks can be balanced with the benefit. And that's the free choice of the individual, and that is the essence of cognitive liberty right there. Is there more likelihood? If you look at alcohol, yeah, absolutely. You got to say that's just 100%. It's like, the high streets in Britain in particular seem a pretty interesting place on late Friday, Saturday nights with the binge drinking that goes on, the binge drinking culture and the fights and the puking and the legs akimbo all over the place. And caused from excessive consumption of alcohol. And that's perfectly lawful, and yet other, I think inherently more safer psychoactives are available. And I think that it should be the choice of the individual which ones they prefer and habituate to and appreciate and grow fond of.
So why do you think that's not possible right now? Why is there a resistance to doing that?
I think in the words of a dear friend of mine, David Luke, I think the government is afraid of the unconscious contents of a man's mind.
Why?
Because they push the limits of it in their experiments. And they've seen some ugly results in their clinical trials and in their surreptitious methods.
What ugly results?
Just unwittingly dosing people. There's this rumor, speculation, possibility that the CIA dosed an entire French village, and there were dire consequences from that.
LSD?
Yeah. Small French village, put it in the water supply.
When was that?
1958, I think. Ponce d'Esprit or something like that. It's just a possibility, but